Jon, thanks for doing this. It's been talked about for a while, but I'm glad we're finally able to get you on and talk about my favourite thing to talk about in the world.
Yeah. Everyone likes to chat about jiu-jitsu. Anyone who trains should be chatting about it. So.
Yeah, I talk about jiu-jitsu probably more than I talk about my kid. So
yeah,
that
it's
kind of
probably
gives you a bit of an insight. I think so. The missus not so keen, but priorities in that.
Yep.
So obviously, Jon, I've known you for a couple of years now, 2.5 years. I think I've been training under your leadership, and for those, I probably should have set the scene a little bit better. Jon's my head coach, guys. Jon is a BJJ black belt, among other things. But I've been training under Jon's instruction for the last couple of years, and just thought, given that I talk about jiu-jitsu all the time, it would be quite a cool idea to bring on a real expert, someone who knows what they're talking about. Certainly a lot more than me. So Jon, would you mind just giving us a bit of an intro as to kind of who you are and what you do?
Yeah, so I'm Jon Wellstead. I'm a jiu-jitsu black belt at Parity Martial Arts. Teach a load of classes, adults and kids. Just teaching people how to strangle and joint lock and hurt each other, but in a nice, controlled and friendly environment, I like to think. So
I don't disagree with that. I think that's the bit I think that people find hard to wrap their head around, is that it is a friendly environment, even though we are trying to commit simulated murder on each other.
Yeah, it's such a mixture of people on the mats, so all backgrounds, but it doesn't matter. Once you're in the mats, you're just another body or another neck to choke.
Yeah, it's very cool. Sorry, one more time.
Nicely and respectfully, obviously.
Of course, yeah. There's no other way. So you're a BJJ black belt. You are the owner of Parity Martial Arts, or co-owner, with your lovely wife Jo. Give us a little bit of a backstory if you can, because I know you were a martial artist prior to your jiu-jitsu days.
Yeah, so I mean, I grew up watching like proper action movies, back in the day, like Predator and like Jean-Claude Van Damme movies, like all of that kind of stuff. The proper action movies, and so I've always loved like martial arts. I did judo when I was a kid, so like 1988, 87, I think, maybe even before that. So I've always loved it, and then I stopped training for a bit, and like it got to about, I think, 2001, 2002, I got back into martial arts. So I did like kickboxing and kung fu for just over a year, I think, and then I came to university, just got drunk and fat, and did all the university things. And after I finished university, my friend who I used to do kickboxing with, he'd also come to the same university in Southampton. He found a gym that was doing, I think it was a 6-week beginner's course in Thai boxing. And he was like, do you fancy starting up again? And I was like, had a bit of weight to lose. So it's like, yeah, perfect. So I started training Thai boxing and boxing in, I think it was around 2008. So I trained that for quite some time, and then started MMA in the same gym as well. Part of it was actually taught by Dave, who's one of the black belts here now as well. Quite a few people actually we used to train with are now still training here, which is cool. I got into the MMA, and it sort of opened my eyes to the grappling side of everything, and I really enjoyed it. So I tried a couple of jiu-jitsu classes. One of them was actually with Jimmy, because there was at one point my Thai coach and Jimmy kind of like partnered up. The Thai gym ended up having to shut down. I think the landlord kicked them out to turn the gym into flats, and then he found another venue, and then for whatever reason the gym sort of disbanded. And because I'd already started doing a bit of jiu-jitsu with Jimmy, he was just opening a full-time place in Southampton, and I was like, well, I don't want to train Thai under another coach, so now's the time just to switch it up and go headfirst into jiu-jitsu. So I think that was I think it was 2012, started jiu-jitsu kind of, and then just stuck with that, and sort of fell into coaching, and here we are.
Right, that's great. It's not something we planned on talking about, and certainly a conversation topic that I don't have any place talking about. But I thought, as you mentioned, Jimmy, just could we just perhaps touch on who Jimmy is?
Yeah.
And his influence on you. I just thought that'd be maybe quite fitting and quite nice.
Yeah.
So I don't know him particularly well, so I'm going to kind of keep my mouth shut on this point.
Yeah. So Jimmy was my coach. He was the head coach for Phoenix MMA, which we were Phoenix MMA before Parity. We were one of the branches of it. He was head coach, jiu-jitsu coach for like the Royal Marines. He had like a really big influence on jiu-jitsu in the UK. He was part of, I think him and Neil Simpkin ran the UK youth elite squad, where they just got kids from loads of gyms together to basically train them up and get them ready for like the IBJJF Worlds and Pans, and like just so they could take on like the best in the world. So he's had like a huge impact on jiu-jitsu in this country in general, and especially on the South Coast. I think there's a lot of gyms around now along the South Coast where the people running it are, at some point have trained under Jimmy or with Jimmy. So yeah, he was quite a big figure in the jiu-jitsu community. Unfortunately, he passed away in September. So it's been a bit of a weird one finding our feet and sort of trying to keep his vision going, essentially. So we're still trying to, like, I'm still teaching most of his techniques that he used to hurt me with. We're still passing on that kind of knowledge, and yeah, we're kind of trying to keep the gym going in the direction that he would have wanted it going. You know, high standards, like lots of technical jiu-jitsu, like, you know, everything that he would wanted. So we're kind of doing that as much as we can, as best we can. Yeah.
That's really well put. So that's again, for a bit more context, that was Jimmy Johnson. Again, I didn't know Jimmy, so that's why I didn't want to speak on it. But what I will say is that every time I get caught in something particularly nasty at the gym, I'll go, "What was that?" And someone will say, "Jimmy taught me that."
Yeah.
Okay.
It'll be like
So that's
horrible knee on belly, but with an elbow digging into your ribs, or a wrist lock, you're being knelt on your face. Yeah, that's Jimmy. So
yeah, that's so like I said, I don't know him particularly well, but the legacy does live on through the pain that is inflicted upon me. So I thought that's quite nice, quite fitting.
We did a rolling, like, the first main class after he passed. Basically, you just got everyone in rolling, and it was almost like anything goes. It was the people that had trained with Jimmy for a while were kind of just bringing out all the best techniques, and I think the evening with, like, I'd wrist locked so many people, and yeah, it was brilliant. So I think we did him proud that night. So
yeah, I'd say so. Let's start at the beginning then, John, because I wanted this to be a bit of an introduction to the sport. I think it is wildly misunderstood or not very well known of. So could you give us your best description of what is Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu?
There's so many ways of describing it. I guess, like, in its essence, it's kind of a martial art and a combat sport, and even like a reality-based fighting system. It's assumed that most, like 90% of fights, are going to end up on the ground. So we like focus on the grappling and the ground fighting aspect. The ultimate goal is to, like, control your opponent so much and put them into, like, a submission, basically. There's obviously there's gi and no gi jiu-jitsu as well. So you've got your pajamas and you've got your lycra, basically. And at its core, they're the same sport, but in the same way I'd say, like, rugby league and rugby union are. So they are the same sport, but they're very different as well. They'll have different fans. They'll have you know, like in gi, you can wrap your gi around someone's neck and choke them with that. In no gi, there's lots of, like, leg attacks and all that kind of stuff. The no gi kind of you know, there's no grips, there's not as many grips, so it benefits people that are kind of fast and explosive and stuff like that. Whereas for me, I prefer the gi because old and slow, and I can grip onto these like young guns that are speeding around. I can like slow them down a little bit. But yeah, ultimately it's just wherever you want to put it, whether it's a martial art, combat sport, like a fighting system, or even just a lifestyle. It's kind of like a mixture of all that, just all together, kind of the art of folding clothes with someone in it, basically.
It is one of my favorite descriptions of jiu-jitsu,
Yeah,
by the way.
yeah, it's a go-to, isn't it?
It really is. Just a quick jump in here, by the way. If anyone's watching, listening, hearing kind of horrendous background noise, I'm having some work done on my house. It's a good example.
I got a shouty baby in the flat, so you could probably hear that as well. So, yep.
We need it done, and I need to do this today. So I'll just the episode might be a bit choppy. It might kind of, because I'm going to have to edit some of this out, of course. So, but look, in terms of the sorry, John.
I can't hear it.
We'll let this pass for a second. Is it really loud your side?
No, I can't hear it.
Really, you can't hear it?
No, I can't. You've gone quiet, but that's it.
Oh wow. Okay, yeah, they're drilling into brick. So
that's always a good one.
Yeah, I'll let this kind of pass for a second, and then we'll, because like I said, I can just chop this out.
Yeah, no worries.
But it's that fine balance. Okay, we seem to be clear. So, jiu-jitsu is on the rise at the moment, John. I think it's becoming increasingly popular. I think it's getting to a point now where it might be, maybe this is an ignorant comment, but it's certainly my observation that it seems to be that jiu-jitsu might be the most prominent individual martial art out there at the moment. Perhaps more so than boxing, which I think is always kind of the mainstream one that you kind of get your kids into. But everywhere I look, and maybe it's just because I am looking, it's confirmation bias perhaps, but everywhere I'm looking, it's jiu-jitsu, jiu-jitsu, jiu-jitsu. And I'm sure the UFC has a great deal to do with that. But what do you think is to blame, to thank for the rise of the sport currently?
MMA in general, definitely. Like obviously UFC is like one of the big players in that, but like I think MMA in general, people start to see the different martial arts that are mixed in, don't they? So you can see the striking, you can see the grappling ones like the wrestling, and then the jiu-jitsu and stuff. So it's definitely raised awareness. And then you've got like celebrities that are training now as well, which doesn't hurt. So you've got I know British ones. You've got like Tom Hardy, who everyone seems to love, obviously. Even people like Tiny Temper, he's competing, and a lot of like the social media influencers as well. They'll compete as well, or they'll train. So it'll end up on their story to casualize, I guess. So more and more people are seeing it, and I think it's done so well. I think it's growing well just because it's more modern. It's a bit more flexible. So like say your karate and stuff like that, obviously it's the tradition is one of like the lovely aspects of those martial arts, but I think in like a modern society, the way people think and stuff is a bit different nowadays, and jiu-jitsu has that flexibility where it still has the discipline and the roots and all that kind of stuff, but it also has like, I don't know, like a surf club vibe. So it's kind of like a bit more casual and stuff. And I think that mixture, like that versatility, works in jiu-jitsu's favor as well.
Something I've also noticed is the level of community is unlike anything I've seen. I've done martial arts in general for over a decade now. Boxing definitely felt the most aggressive. You walk into a boxing, and not all boxing gyms, and this is a generalization, but my experience was that the boxing gyms tend to be quite testosterone fueled, quite aggressive. And then you start, in my transition was kind of boxing, Muay Thai and kickboxing, and then into jiu-jitsu. Muay Thai was a little bit more relaxed, but we're still kicking each other in the head. But then you step onto the jiu-jitsu mats, and it's a strange feeling, because it's very community based. There's a lot of love. There's a lot of great friendships that I've made. But I think it's possibly because it's quite absolute. So if you're sparring in, say, boxing or kickboxing, you have a chance to land a lucky shot. or if you're fighting, you have that lucky chance. The likelihood, John, of me submitting you in a role, because I fucked around and found out, is zero, unless you're asleep.
Never zero.
Okay, we're talking in the very, very, very close to zero. So it's very absolute. So I wonder if it's a nature of the fact that it's not really up for debate. There is a hierarchy, whilst it doesn't feel like that. It doesn't feel like someone's better than this person, but it is absolute in the sense that there is a structure to follow, and I wonder if that has something to do with the killing of egos on the mats, perhaps.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's only so many times that you can get tapped out by like a 14-year-old girl and still have an ego. Like, I feel like to be successful in like the striking martial arts, you've got to have a bit of an ego. It works with that. Whereas in jiu-jitsu, you can't. There's no hiding on the mats. So, and like you say, you've got the rank system in the gi, especially. So sometimes you are going to get caught by someone who is a lower rank than you, and you can either like try and shut down and not let them catch you, or you can make an excuse and say you were injured, or you can just accept the fact that sometimes you're just going to get caught. Like, keep playing and you're only going to get better for it. And yeah, so it's jiu-jitsu is definitely, like, we like to think it's an ego killer. There's still egos in jiu-jitsu, like, of course there is, but you've be a bit of a different one, because if you're getting caught by, I mean, we've got a girl here, Lexi, she's 15 now, but she's been training forever, and yeah, if we just feed her like the new people that come in, like the guys that are being a bit like egotistical, you just go, right, here you go, Lexi, and she'll like smash them up a little bit, and you've got a choice when don't come back, or you change your mindset to training. So
I think it's really hard for people to understand that and wrap their heads around, or even believe it. If I told you that an 80 kilo, 85 kilo guy could walk into the gym, 22 years old, fit, strong, athletic, and get folded like a pretzel by a 14-year-old girl, you'd say that's not going to happen, but it really does. I roll with Lex on a regular basis, and I think I'm still yet to catch her in something. She's so technically astute. She's trained. The thing is, she's trained for longer than a lot of the people in the gym, but because she's on the kids ranks, they won't kind of link the time that she's trained. So if you think, she's probably trained as long as most of the purple, even brown belts in this gym. So, she's not far off that level. She's just not at that rank because of her age. So, right.
Which is one of the things about jiu-jitsu, is like, you're not going to get like 10-year-old black belts, so. Yeah,
that's true. And actually, you talk about, she's probably been trained as long as some of the purple belts. I might be wrong here, but her dad, Lee, who is a solid purple belt, I'm right in saying she started training before him, and then he followed in.
Yeah.
So there we go.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? And he's a good purple belt.
Yeah, he's all right.
He's all right. Yeah. I knew you'd say that. Fair enough. Shout out to Lee and Lex. So we've kind of covered what jiu-jitsu is in a very loose sense. I mean, it's very, very deep. But let's talk about some of the physical benefits, because that's my thing. That's my bag. From a physical standpoint, what does Brazilian jiu-jitsu give you?
I mean, increased mobility, strength, aerobic and anaerobic endurance, I guess. Like, you basically work in every muscle group in your body, aren't you? It's kind of a mixture of, I don't know, like yoga, cardio, weightlifting, all of it, because you're moving yourself and you're moving someone else. So like lots and lots of physical benefits. Rolling, when you're rolling, it's like a 5-minute round. Generally, like we'll still mix it up a little bit, but because it's like high and low intensity like training, you could probably burn like over 500 calories in half an hour just from rolling alone. So it's pretty good in terms of a form of exercise. We see it quite often. People come in and they'll come for like the exercise, the health benefits. They'll drop a load of weight, but then they stick with it, obviously, because then they've fallen in love with the sport. But yeah, lots and lots of physical benefits. So,
Yeah, I agree. It's fascinating, and again, it's perhaps hard to explain to someone that doesn't know or hasn't done that. But you will be pushing and pulling and squeezing. It will you'll be blowing because of the cardio demand, especially when you're stuck under somebody and you're trying to get out,
yep.
or trying to keep someone pinned to the mat. Even
Yeah.
it's you, as you said, require flexibility, mobility. I mean,
Yeah.
some days I'll step
Like
off
it
the
without
mat.
flexibility. If you've ever seen me roll, you don't need flexibility much.
Yeah, true, true, true.
Yeah.
But I bet it's better than if you weren't.
Yeah.
But I'll step off the mat sometimes. I'm a pretty fit guy. I work out most days, and my heart rate will be like 165.
Yeah.
It's a real blast. So, if you want a way to, and the cool thing about it as well, and I'm sure we'll touch on kind of the mental aspect of the game or the sport. But it's when I'm in the weight room, I hate the weight room. I do it out of necessity.
Yeah.
It is boring. It doesn't matter if I've got good music. It doesn't even matter if I'm training with someone. It's boring. Counting to however many reps I'm doing, then putting the weight down. It's dull. Same with running. If I'm just running, again, doesn't matter if I'm listening to a podcast or music. Eventually, I'm going to get back inside my own head and I'm going to start listening to the voices in there again. But with jiu-jitsu, you can't. You are locked in because you've got a big dude with a beard, better beard than me, trying to pull your head off. You don't really have time to think about what's going on at the office, what you're having for tea, the stresses in your life. So it's extremely cathartic, I think, in that regard.
Yeah, for sure. Like you say, once you're on the mats, nothing else matters. It's kind of like an escape from reality, isn't it? And you can't be distracted by outside stresses. It's your focus is solely on what you're doing, and so many people come in and they're all wired and like stressed out, anxious or whatever after like a tough day, and then they'll come in and you watch sometimes I should take a photo of someone's face before they start training and after, and you'd see it like, have you seen the photos of the people before and after war, and it's like they're all haggard. This would be like the reverse of it. I don't know, with Benjamin Button up in here, but
yeah.
It's interesting to see how everyone's sort of shoulders are where they're just more relaxed after training and stuff. It's nice.
Yeah, I mean, go and look at the Parity social media. We take a group photo, which again I love from a community standpoint. We all get together at the end and we put our arms around each other and we take a group photo at the end of a session. Sorry, John.
Otherwise, you lose your powers. Your training doesn't count if you aren't in a.
Well, it doesn't count if it doesn't go on social media. It's a bit like going out for dinner. If you don't take a photo of it, it didn't happen.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, yeah, there are certain social media rules, but you see those. There's a few guys posturing. I'm normally one of them, trying to give it the mean mugging, especially if I've got a competition coming up, just in case my opponents are checking me out. But you're giving it all of that. But you look at the smiles on those faces.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's great to see. And that photo, generally speaking, is taken after 5 rounds of rolling and possibly some positional sparring.
Generally an hour and a half of training, isn't it? So like a load of techniques and then putting them to the test. So
on paper you shouldn't be smiling.
No.
But everyone's beaming, which is great to see. Something that jiu-jitsu has done for me incredibly well, and I don't talk about it publicly very much, but it's been amazing for my mental health.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what type of day I'm having. If I can just get to the mats, I generally tend to find that everything is a lot better afterwards. I never regret going. I never feel worse for it. Sometimes, I mean, don't get me wrong, some days the problems are still there when I get off the mats, but I don't feel worse for going. But 99% of the time, I feel a lot better. As a leader and a coach and a gym owner, is that something that you see a lot of? Because obviously people use you as a confidant and they lean into you quite a lot.
Yeah, we get it a lot. It was really noticeable during lockdown, obviously where people couldn't train and stuff, and a lot of people really did struggle like with their mental health and stuff. And you could see the moment people could get, like, they were itching to get back here, and the moment they were back on the mats and after those first few training sessions where we were actually allowed contact again, it was yeah, everyone's instantly their demeanor changed, and you could see that like the difference it makes. It was like really eye opening, and it's kind of humbling in a way, because obviously running a place like this is it's hard work, but then when you hear and see the impact it has on people's lives, like physical and mental health and stuff, it's kind of like it's worth all the late nights and all the stress and all that of running somewhere. And yes, it's amazing to see. And even for like us, for me and Joe as well, we've struggled through various things. Like Joe had terrible postnatal depression after like one of the little ones was born, and just she tried the therapy that they'd suggested and some sort of light therapy that just didn't work for her. And the moment she could get on the mats and start to choke people again, it was like a weight was lifted. And so yeah, we felt it, seen it firsthand. So yeah, it's a big impact on people.
Well, I mean, I think that's exercise in general too. You know, I keep talking about this study that came out of Australia a year or so ago, that exercise is 1.5 times more effective at aiding in depression than medication and therapy.
Yeah.
And I always caveat that with, you should still do the therapy if you need it, and you should still take the medication if you need it.
Yeah.
But it's proven. We see it. We know it. We know how good we feel.
Therapy, but it's therapeutic, isn't it? You know, that's the way of looking at it.
Yeah. Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I think there's something interesting, and I struggle how to explain this without sounding a bit weird, but I've always tried to explain it. I think fundamentally we are a tribal species.
Yeah.
But in that, we've kind of lost, especially in the modern day, we've kind of lost that play aspect. We're quite tactile.
Yeah.
But maybe as Brits, we're a little bit more standoffish. But you go to the continent and they're a lot more tactile than we are. But there is something weird, and it's not an intimacy in the traditional sense, but that human contact. I don't know how to put it into words. You might be able to do a better job than me, but you following me?
And yeah, I struggle for words as well. I think it's like some sort of primeval need for contact. And I mean, you could look at, I don't know, if you wanted to get all weird about it, you could look at the animal kingdom, and I don't know, like gorillas or monkeys sat there like picking at each other and grooming each other and all that kind of the whole contact thing is like, it's really important. I think like even when a baby's born, you do the skin on skin contact, because it's like the endorphins or whatever it is. And I think anyone who plays like a contact sport, rugby, anything like that, it will be the same. It has that kind of, there's something in it, and I'm sure there's studies on it as well. But yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah. But you explain that to someone who doesn't do jiu-jitsu and they go, what?
Yeah. It's just like a tugging. So you feel better after.
You do. You just do. And it's really bizarre. And I mean, a really good example actually was, we both had our little ones on the mats yesterday.
Yeah.
And your little one's a little bit older than mine. But she seemed really keen on just stroking my boy's hair.
Yeah.
Which again, there's something in that kind of, like you say, that human nature that, I don't know, you know, maybe we're going right down a Darwin-esque tangent here, but I do think there's something in that, certainly. And it's until you get on the mats and you feel it, but also, that being said, you know, the first time I did jiu-jitsu, I was like, this close contact is a bit weird.
Yeah.
And I think that puts a lot of people off.
I completely understand why people don't like it or don't like the idea of doing it. Like I never judge people for not wanting to give it a go. Some people don't like contact. Some people like freak if they see someone's feet. So like the thought of someone's foot near your face, like I completely. We started ladies only classes. Joe started ladies only classes, for like that was part of the reason, because especially ladies, we were worried that they wouldn't mind the contact, but to have that contact with a guy that they don't know is different to if it was like another lady. And so it's like trying to, even though the gym is a safe space, trying to create an even safer space for an outsider looking in. Like as a ladies only class, it means that they can get used to that kind of contact and get confident in moving. And again, like if they didn't feel confident, if they were doing no gi and they don't feel confident in like tight clothes because they're not happy with how they look, all this kind of stuff. So it was like a safer space. And it works really well. And then most of the ladies now are just jumping into the mixed classes and just trying to mess up the guys. So it's, it's definitely, it makes a difference, that kind of thing.
I agree. Joe's done a tremendous job with that women's team, because not only has it grown over time, but I'd argue that actually the most competitive and most regular competitors in our gym are the ladies. The girls seem to be competing a bit more than the guys, which is really interesting. So not only was it like, here's a safe space for you, they've kind of run with it and gone, right, let's go to war.
Yeah,
and they're out competing on the mats.
Ladies are savage. If you've ever watched women's jiu-jitsu, yeah, they're violent. Like the guys are sort of posturing and stuff. The girls are already like, they don't mess about. They just get straight in. Yeah, if you ever watch the show that Joe runs, Enyo, you'll see it. We ran a show in Sardinia, and the ref, we didn't know him that well, but he asked us like, "Oh, what do you do if there's stalling?" And we were like, "There's never been stalling. The ladies stall." They're like, he's like, "Yeah, but what if that happens? What do I do?" And we were like, "Right, just reset them in the middle and all this kind of stuff." And at the end of the show, he came up and he was like, "You're right. They never stall. They're just constantly like attacking each other."
I agree that women's jiu-jitsu is absolutely fascinating, because
yeah,
what they lack in strength, they tend to make up for in mobility and the ability to flow. The sport seems faster, and like you say, it's highly aggressive. It's very interesting to watch. But what's also quite amusing, if you met these ladies off the mats, they are elegant and ladylike and quite gentle, and they're real ladies, it's
yeah.
And then you get them on the mats, and then you're like, what is happening?
Yeah, it's elegant violence.
It is elegant violence.
Yeah.
I think we should take a minute to just give Enyo a bit of a plug, actually, because I think it's amazing what yourself and Joe are doing there, and I know Joe's kind of leading the way.
It's all her. I'm not taking any credit. She's the brains behind it all. So I just carry. But,
I know you're playing that supporting role, and it's very much Joe's baby. But I love the idea of it. Someone had to, right? Because we can talk about underrepresentation in sports, be it jiu-jitsu or whatever other sport, but someone has to get up and do something about it.
Yeah.
And Joe was that person.
Yep. She's run with it. I think she got tired of watching a lot of the other, like, we've always supported all the other grappling shows in the country, but I think it was frustrating to watch these shows with so many matches on, but like, so 20 or 30 matches, but like one ladies match. Right. And yeah, I think she was like, not anymore, it's not my watch, basically, and just started the show. And yeah, it's been great. It's been some amazing ladies on it and some awesome matches. So young, like, from up and comers to world champions. So it's been awesome to watch.
And if anyone wanted to kind of see what we're talking about, it's all up on YouTube, right?
Yeah, I think it's Enyo Grappling. It'll be on YouTube. There's Instagram and all that kind of stuff as well. So.
And that's ENYO.
Yep.
Yeah, guys, go check that out, because that's it's incredible. So we've talked about physical benefits of jiu-jitsu, which I think are fairly obvious.
Yeah.
The mental health benefits, the fact that it is consuming, and there's a great community. I've made some tremendous friends through the sport. And actually, can I just tell you a very quick story on and I think it's our gym. I think it's Parity. I've trained at some other gyms that are not as friendly, perhaps equally as good in terms of the coaching quality, etc. But in terms of community, I've struggled to find anything like Parity. But I know that the jiu-jitsu community is very welcoming. I could fly to a different country, put on a gi, walk into a gym, and be welcomed, generally speaking. But what you'll tend to find with jiu-jitsu, if you are looking for a tribe, if you're looking for a community, if you're feeling a bit lonely, I signed up for my first competition really early on in white belt. I think I was 6-7 weeks in, and I didn't know anything. I still don't know anything, but I really, really didn't know anything. And Lee, who we mentioned earlier, I didn't know Lee at the time. I hadn't met him. And I bumped into him in the car park, and he said, "Oh, I've got a question to ask you." I said, "Yeah." He said, "Are you competing in a couple of weeks?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Do you need some help?" I said, "Yeah." He said, cool, meet me here Sunday, 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
And he just gave up his time, helped me get some rounds in, put some pressure on me. There wasn't a lot he was able to teach me in that very short space of time that was going to make much of a difference on the mats, but just knowing that there was some support there was amazing. And Lee's a great guy, but he's not it's not an isolated incident in jiu-jitsu, but particularly in our gym. So I think if you're looking for a tribe or looking for a community, or you're feeling lonely, just go and check out a few jiu-jitsu gyms and see what happens, because I really do believe it will change your life.
Definitely.
Cognitive benefits.
Yeah. So when you sent me through like a list of things we might be talking about, this one like flagged up because I'd actually read a couple of studies the other day that I thought might be quite good to just mention, rather than me just trying to wing something together about cognitive.
Yeah, please. That sounds great.
Great for your brain, it's really good. But there was one study published that found BJJ training led to improvements in attention and working memory in healthy adults. The study involved 36 participants who were randomly assigned to a BJJ training group or a control group. And after 12 weeks of training, the BJJ group showed significant improvements in attention and working memory compared to the control group. There was another study done for psychology of sport and exercise, and they found that the training led to improvements in cognitive flexibility in older adults. The study involved 41 older adults who were randomly assigned to either BJJ training or control group. And again, after 12 weeks of training, the BJJ group showed significant improvements in cognitive flexibility compared to the control group.
Wow.
There was another one that I really like this one because we've got quite a few neurodiverse kids at the gym. So this one was, it found that BJJ training led to improvements in cognitive function in children with ADHD. The study involved 20 children with ADHD who participated in a 12-week BJJ training program. And after the program, the children showed significant improvements in cognitive function compared to the before program. And the final one that I remember reading was, again, it was in the Journal of Sports Science and Medicine, and it found that BJJ training led to improvements in cognitive function and mood in young adults. So the study involved 18 participants randomly assigned to BJJ training or a control group. And after 6 weeks of training, the BJJ group showed significant improvements in cognitive function and mood compared to the control group. So the result with BJJ training can provide cognitive benefits, particularly in the areas of attention, working memory, and cognitive flexibility in both adults and kids, which, yeah, I thought was pretty cool.
That's really cool. I'm not surprised.
No, same.
Well, it's, I'm trying to come at this constantly from a point of view of someone that doesn't know about jiu-jitsu. And so, I sit here and I go, I'm not surprised. Well, yeah, because I do it.
Yeah.
But, for those that don't know, you are constantly having to think. And I know if you play tennis, you've got to constantly think. Or if you're playing football or you're boxing, I know you're constantly having to think. There's sport IQ and fight IQ, etc. But there is a heightened level in jiu-jitsu. And I've heard it referred to quite a lot as kind of human chess.
Yep.
And I think that analogy is quite apt. I know people maybe like to use it to sound like they're smarter than they are. Yeah. But there is a real, if I could use an example, right? One of our training partners, or one of our teammates, Martin, who's a brown belt,
yep.
The smallest guy in the room, but is terrifying, has been playing a game with me recently. When we roll, he always beats me up. It's not even close. But he plays a game with me at the moment, and it's a real simple traffic light system. He'll let me work, he'll let me attack, he'll let me kind of get my game off, and he'll pause and he'll go, that's a red light. If you put your arm there, I'm going to do this. I'm like, cool, I'll bring my arm back. And then I'll be doing something, be like, that's amber. Like, it's there, but equally approach with caution. Okay, right. So then I have to then think about what is the danger and what happens if it goes right, what happens if it goes wrong. And then, green light's obviously, but like, yeah, go for that. And I can go for it. Yeah. The level of detail, could you speak to that a little bit, please?
What, in terms of what Martin's doing with you?
Well, that or just the level of detail that that is required in terms of the constant thinking,
Yeah.
the chess nature of the sport.
Yeah, so you'll have it when you roll with like the higher belts, and I guess as you go up the belts, or even just years of experience or whatever, you'll find that people are more and more moves ahead, or at least it will feel like they are. Some people aren't necessarily that many moves ahead, but it will feel like it because they know what your reactions are, so they'll react to your reactions, and so there's that constant like I don't know, like art of war kind of, that kind of style of thinking going on. Like if I do this, am I going to bait them into doing something where I can attack it, or so it's very much like a cerebral sport as well, isn't it? You can wing it through pure athleticism, but that will get you so far. Pure strength will get you so far. You've got to combine all of your strengths. So whether your strength is strength, flexibility, cardio, or whatever, but you've got to also bring in your mind and the way you think about things and approach things. And you find also that people's the way they think, their style of thinking affects their style of jiu-jitsu. So we've got people that are quite, like, you could tell they're very quick decision makers, and they're straight to the point. Like maybe they're quite fiery, so their jiu-jitsu is more aggressive. Or you've got the people, I don't know, I'm really indecisive, so I'm a bit more chilled when I roll and all this kind of stuff. So even the way that someone thinks can affect their game, which I always find kind of interesting as well.
I think that's really well put, actually, and I think maybe the first example was me a little bit, quite brash, quite head heavy, maybe trying to move on to the next thing before I've secured the previous thing, and it's really fascinating, actually, because I love when we get to roll for many reasons, but one of the things I really enjoy when you and I roll is that I will do something that is in my A game, that anybody at my level, most people at my level, generally it will work more often than it won't. But you've seen it 100 million times over. And what's really funny is that I'll get maybe 3/4 of the way through it, and then you'll shut it down because it's coming, because your speed of thought, your processing speed is so much quicker, and maybe some pattern recognition. Okay, he's put his foot here and his arm there. Chances are he's going to go here, and I end up on my back, and I'm like, hang on, I was attacking, I was winning that. What happened?
Yeah, it's like an interesting one, because I think when, as a higher belt, especially like as a black belt, people kind of look at you and almost expect you to know everything, and you can't know everything. Like jiu-jitsu is constantly evolving, and no one knows everything. Like, but what the more experienced people do spot, like you say, is the patterns. But also, we can just make stuff up, because our fundamentals, if your fundamentals are sound and you understand the concepts of how a move works, you can pretty much just wing it. So sometimes it will feel like I know what I'm doing, when actually I've gone, I wonder if this will work, and I just do it, and it's like, yeah, that works. Right. Awesome. So yeah, there's sometimes a bit of an element of bluffing. As long as I keep a smile on my face, you think I know what I'm doing, but
right.
But I like, conceptually, I understand what I'm doing, and I understand why it works or why it should work. So that's the kind of thing. Again, I think when people start to progress through the belts, you can remember one or two concepts, and that could cover 100 techniques. So I don't have to remember the techniques. As long as my fundamentals, my foundations are solid, the concepts are there, it will work. I can make stuff up. It will cover all these techniques.
I think that's really true, and something that I've started to get to grips with a little bit more at the point in the journey that I'm on. You talked about being a black belt and the expectations of you knowing everything. It's a long road to black belt. The question I wanted to ask, but I don't think it's a fair question, was how hard is it to get a black belt? But perhaps we could talk more so on, because it is a hard thing to achieve. But could you perhaps talk about how do you get a black belt?
You literally just have to turn up. You just got to keep turning up. Like Chris Hauser, he's like one of the first American black belts. He did I'm pretty sure it's his quote, and it's basically, it's not who's best, it's who's left. And it's just that consistency of turning up. Eventually your belt will turn black. you get a lot of people that chase the belts and chase the promotions, which is the wrong mindset. You should be kind of like chasing the knowledge, really, and then the belts and stuff happen. So yeah, it's just time on the mats, and it's going to take everyone a different amount of time, and it's going to depend on like lots of factors, like how many times a week are you training, what your like how much can your body do. Like if you're naturally athletic, some people pick up moves quicker, so they're going to advance maybe a bit quicker. It also kind of depends on the coach, what the coach looks at in terms of giving belts, because some coaches look for different things. Some will gear it towards, obviously you'll be looking at like competition results and stuff, which is definitely a factor. Some people, it almost feels like nowadays some places just go purely on time, which is wrong. It shouldn't just be hit the minimum, get the belt. It's like the minimum's there for a reason, to keep the standard high, but that's just one factor in it. There's so much more to it. There should be like your technical knowledge. So like a 60-year-old getting a blue belt is going to be different to a 20-year-old getting the blue belt. They might have the same technical knowledge, but the 20-year-old should be smashing up the blue belt, the 60-year-old blue belt, But if that blue belt, the 60-year-old competes at his weight and age, he should do okay. And so you can't judge everyone the same as well. So I think that's one of the great things about jiu-jitsu is you're not just ticking stuff off of a list. You judge everyone differently. So everyone's got a different, I really hate the phrase because it's so cheesy, but everyone's got a different journey to black belt.
Sure.
And like there's definite crossovers, but it will just depend on the person. So some people will get their black belt in, like you've got the people getting it the quickest, the ones that have they've come in from wrestling or judo, or they're just natural athletes and they're training like 3 times a day. So that, you're racking up the mat hours. So people are getting it within like 5 years, 4 or 5 years, which is quick. Even though for a lot of martial arts, that's actually still not that quick. Whereas like the average time, I think before was something like 10 to 12 years, maybe even a bit more. But obviously, if you're training once or twice a week, that 10 to 12 years is different. If you're training 3 days, 3 times a day, it's more like the mat hours, isn't it? So getting a black belt, I guess, it's difficult to keep that consistency because life throws spanners in the works, and all the time life gets in the way, injuries, everything. So it's just staying dedicated to the sport, I guess. You'll get there eventually.
So what do you look for then? You sort of said it changes from gym to gym. From what I understand, seeing on social media, there seems to be a lot of kind of almost like membership subscription based promotions as well, doing the route, which seems a bit funky to me.
Yeah, every gym's entitled to run it how they want, right? So for us, I try not to worry what other gyms are doing. I obviously don't want the art watered down. So I do kind of keep an eye on that kind of side of things, because you want to make sure that you want jiu-jitsu to be as powerful as it. You should walk in and go, oh my God, I'm a 200-pound guy and this 15-year-old girl's just messed me up. You want to keep that. And every gym's entitled to promote how they want. But for us, we look for a number of things. Obviously, time training is a factor, but it's only one factor. We look at competition results. If people want to compete, people don't have to compete, but if you don't, it might take you a bit longer. But are you willing to seek out those hard roles? So if you're not competing, do you travel and train, or do you go to open mats and, are you seeking out the hard roles? People shouldn't be roll dodging. I get why people roll dodge if there's one person that you don't want to roll with because you're worried they'll injure you, or they smell, or anything like that. So everyone's always entitled to turn rolls down for sure, but to actively avoid the roles that are challenging, I think is a bit, you've got to watch out for stuff like that. We look for things like, are they a good teammate? Like Lee, for example, the example you gave where he was willing to give up his time. That's a massive, I don't expect anyone to give up their time, but he's so willing to. That's a massive tick, isn't it? Even just after your role with someone, generally the high belts, if they're willing to be to share their knowledge with you, like go, oh, that was really great. Do you know in this position if you did this? Like, I'm not asking anyone to coach you, but at the same time, if they're being generous with their feedback or their information, things like that are a factor. It's like we kind of like look for so many things, like, and you can tell if you look around the room when people are rolling, even if they didn't have their belts on or if it was no gi, you could generally tell the levels in this gym. I feel like we have people come in from other gyms, which is great as well. I love it. So we don't mind people cross training, and at the same time we let people come in and join in with our rolling, and it's always interesting to see how our guys sort of hold up against them. And generally, like, we've got such great feedback about our levels, and it just shows that we're, like, all the coaches here and the members are just doing a great job of sustaining like that strong level that Jimmy kind of wanted from the off. And it's just down to so many factors, so it's almost hard to put into words, because it's almost like if like, I'll look at someone, it's like, yeah, they're due that belt, and
right.
I can list up reasons, but also there's some that are just like, just roll with them and you'll know, or just speak to them and you'll know, because they're those other boxes that you might not have realized. So it's not helpful when someone, what do I need to do to get to the next belt? I can give you like a rough list, but then there's also like other unspoken things where it's like, also, if you did this for a change.
I guess that's the wrong question to ask, isn't it? Like, how do I get to the next belt? Potentially, the question would be, how do I improve, or what am I missing? What am I lacking? Where can I develop?
It's kind of like, I understand the premise of the question. I understand they're asking that because basically they're asking, like, how can I improve? Because that belt is like a sign of improvement, or that next stripe is a sign of improvement, isn't it? But so I never, like, I don't judge people unless you get the obvious belt chasers, and it's like, well, you're basically revising for a test. You're just passing the test, but you're not gaining the knowledge on the subject. Whereas, like, the way that we grade, obviously, we grade on someone who's studied the subject. They have like a knowledge of the subject, and then there's no test, because every day on the mats is that test. So you don't have that person who's really good at revising and then suddenly smashes the test, but they don't know anything else. You could ask them any other question about the subject and they know nothing, because they could just reel off a textbook.
Right.
That's how, like, that's how we consider people's knowledge. It's just like trying to build more than just, you need this to pass to get to this belt. Like, I don't care if you can do this move, and this move, because everyone's jiu-jitsu is different. We've got a really good example is Arik, who I think you chatted to recently, but yeah, he's got cerebral palsy, so his legs don't work as they should. We wouldn't grade him the same way that we would grade 18-year-old Billy, who, you can't judge them on the same thing. But when I'm grading Arik, I'm still gonna make sure he can do certain things, but also I'm building in those adjustments, because there are certain things he's not going to be able to do, but I'm not going to hold him back because of that. I'm going to make sure that he's a blue belt for what he can do once he gets there. I think he's a 3-stripe white belt, but he gets stuck in, and it won't be long until he's knocking on that door. And it's things like that are just really inspiring to see. And it's just great to be able to watch people progress. And then once we can give that promotion as well, it's the best feeling. It's so lovely.
I can imagine that's really rewarding. And I think, when you talk about everyone's journey being individual, I tell this story all the time. Not long after my son was born, I came back to the gym after a brief hiatus, and also at the time I was feeling quite good about my jiu-jitsu. I'd just come off a fairly good kind of competition performance that I was really happy with, and I was physically in really good shape, and everything just felt like it was kind of clicking, and I felt I was in a good place. And I rolled with this lad who he's a super competent white belt. I was a white belt at the time, and he mauled me. And I'd been doing jiu-jitsu probably about a year longer than him, maybe 9 months, something like that. On paper, it was possibly a fair argument to say that my overall jiu-jitsu knowledge was a bit better than his, just because I'd accumulated a little bit more mat time than he had. And he really beat me up. And we got chatting afterwards, and it turns out that this young buck is like 22 years old, full of piss and vinegar and testosterone. And it's that moment it kind of dawned on me that, oh shit, at the time I was 35,
Yeah.
I'm like,
Not
oh wow, I'm sorry.
not sleeping, so like running on empty. Yeah.
Right. And it was it, and I want to be real careful because I'm not discrediting his jiu-jitsu, because I think he's excellent. And I really value him as a training partner, and I really like him as a bloke as well. But it was just a moment of like, oh shit, I'm on my journey at the moment. I'm closer to 40 than he is 30.
Yeah.
And it was just all these factors that kind of came into play that really made me, I guess, help me understand that individual journey piece. You know, how many times can you get in? What are you dealing with physically? You know, stresses of work, business travel, whatever it might be. You know, it's so it is nice to see that analogy of, you know, the 60-year-old blue belt versus a 20-year-old blue belt. Was that's obvious.
Yeah.
Who on paper should win that. Can we talk about the impact of BJJ on? Could we break it down into kind of young men and then perhaps young women, girls, and then women? Because I think, again, it sounds a bit rah-rah, and I don't want to kind of get too hippie about this, but I think there is an interesting, it's not spiritual perhaps, but there is something about jiu-jitsu that is, well, it's obviously very humbling, it's very grounding, there's a lot of discipline involved. What do you think is the impact on, say, young boys that step onto the mats, and what does that do for them? Obviously we talked about the cognitive benefits, by the way, but
Yeah.
perhaps outside of that.
I think it's kind of a weird one to break down into like young men, young women, and all that kind of stuff. I think it's almost like it keeps people coming back for more. So like you're kind of promoting healthy habits and healthy lifestyle, aren't you? You're constantly like challenging yourself and trying to level up. So it's kind of doing bits for motivation, discipline, humility, patience, all that kind of stuff, you know, for everyone. For the smaller people, obviously it's giving like an opportunity to even through like self-doubt and frustration, and like whether it's like physical or mental pain on the mats as well, you kind of, it shows that you can like push through all these challenges. So if you can push through those kind of like stressful situations, you can kind of do the same in life, if that makes sense. So it can kind of like change the way you think about things and the way that you approach any problem. Because I mean, if you can stay calm when you've got 150 kilo guy smushing your face, you know, he's like crushing you on top of you. Like if you can stay calm in that kind of situation, what outside of that is more stressful at work? Like, you know, just take a breath, relax, and then start problem solving your way out of these problems. And I think like it doesn't almost matter whether you're small or big, boy or girl. Like it kind of teaches you that. Obviously for the girls and for the ladies, it has a massive benefit in terms of like helping towards self-defense. It's not a self-defense. I mean, old school Gracie jiu-jitsu has the self-defense element. Nowadays, like jiu-jitsu is more of a sport in a way, but at the same time, I'd say most people who practice jiu-jitsu would do, you know, they have a head start against an untrained assailant, essentially.
Yeah.
I know that if anyone tried to force themselves between Joe's legs, they'd pay for it and they'd probably be choked out pretty quickly.
Yeah.
But again, even in a self-defense situation, knowing how to stay calm against someone who's like coming at you is a massive benefit, because you can potentially de-escalate it, couldn't you? So I think the benefits are very similar across the board for everyone. And again, it's like, it doesn't matter on your sex or your size. You're going to kind of get like whatever mix of that benefit you need from the sport, if that makes sense. I think for the boys, obviously, it's a good release of stress. And like obviously, like if they've got all this testosterone built up, you're allowed to release it in this room. Like in terms of scrapping on the mats, it's great. And again, like as you heard with the cognitive thing, it gives everyone a focus and changes the way you just think in general. So I think, yeah, there's so many benefits across the board. that to break it down almost feels wrong, because if every person is going to get a different, they almost get the benefit you need from it. You can take what you need from it, can't you? It's the same if I showed you 3 jiu-jitsu techniques, one of them doesn't work for you, one of them 50-50, one of them is great, you'd take the good one, you'd kind of maybe keep the middle one in mind, but you'd disregard the one that doesn't work for you for now, and then maybe come back to it further down the line when you might understand a bit more and how to make that work for you. And it's the same with the benefits as well. You'll take the benefits that you need from it.
Yeah, I think that's really true and well put. Something my dad said. So my dad is typical old school man's man. He's come to watch me compete a couple of times. He doesn't really come to watch me. He comes to watch the kids. He's absolutely obsessed with watching the kids compete. And every time he says, I know what he's going to say. I could write it down on a piece of paper before he says it. He says they should be teaching this in schools. This would eliminate bullying, violent tendencies. It would help kids, like you said, with the cognitive, but also letting off some steam. Particularly the boys that we're not particularly boys, but girls also, but particularly young boys are not designed to sit in classrooms for 8 hours a day, being quiet and looking at the whiteboard. And I really believe that. I think Lexi's a great example. Young Mitchell is a phenomenal example. The way they conduct themselves, and I don't know if it's because they know they have this in their back pocket, or it's just an air of confidence. But 2 of the most well put together young people I've met, and I worked with kids for a long time, particularly in a football context. But these youngsters are, I mean, their parents should be incredibly proud the way they conduct themselves around the gym. But I do have to wonder if that's got something to do with the sport, with the fact that they are both competent jiu-jitsu athletes.
Yeah, I'd like to think so. We actually teach jiu-jitsu at a local school for their PE, and you get, obviously it's a class of pretty much 30 kids, and some of the kids don't want to do PE, so you always get those kids, but there's definitely a good percentage of the kids that love it and focus and train hard when we're teaching them. And you can start to see, like, after the class when they're lining up, it's got rid of a lot of that energy, so get them back to their desks, and then they hopefully focus. Sometimes we rile them up a bit too much, maybe, I don't know, but it's kind of it's great to be able to teach it in the schools. And this is why I love the fact our kids classes are growing here as well. So we've got so many kids. Our kids classes are generally like hitting 30, maybe even more in some of the jiu-jitsu classes, and same with the MMA and the striking. They're getting busier and busier, and it's just such a good release for these kids. And we've all chucked our kid on a tablet or on a screen at some point. You have to sometimes. It's impossible to not if you've got stuff going on, but at least the kids here are earning their screen time if they're on their screen, or they're developing all these healthy habits. And I think kids who are active as kids, there's more chance that going forward they're gonna be healthy and active adults. So it's definitely a game changer. More kids should try something active.
I totally agree. A couple of things I'd like to touch on, John, because I'm conscious of your time. You talked about self-defense. I heard a great quote from a guy who I love consuming his content, Jocko Willink. I'll share some Jocko content probably once a week on my Instagram. And he talked about this scenario, which I really liked. It said, if you square up to punch me, I can run away. And if you square up to kick me, I can run away. But if you grab hold of me, now I need to have some level of competence and understanding as to what to do next. On top of that, we read, probably more regularly than we would like to in the papers, that there's been a fight outside a pub and some guy's punched another guy and he's hit the ground and now he's dead. So being able to use jiu-jitsu in a self-defense situation, I think, is incredibly valuable. I'd just like to hear your thoughts on that, please.
Yeah, so I think obviously jiu-jitsu is not ideal against multiple attackers. If we're on the ground and I've got hold of someone else could kick me in the head, so it's not ideal. But hopefully I have enough control of the person that I might be able to move my head out of the way. I think the idea of being able to stay calm like with all that aggression going on, which you do when you're rolling. So you learn how to stay calm and under that kind of stress. That should kind of help, like, because then you've got time to assess the situation. If you need to restrain someone, generally, even if you've only trained like sport jiu-jitsu, you do okay restraining someone. If it did fall to the floor, generally you could probably get out from underneath them and get on top, and then maybe run if you needed to. I think it's no good if the person's got a weapon. Your best thing is to leg it, But people who train jiu-jitsu would stand a better chance in a self-defense situation than someone who doesn't train jiu-jitsu. There's no two ways about it. It's the same with any, I'd say, like if you've done MMA, if you've done Thai boxing, if you train some form of combat sport or martial art, you would probably do better than someone who has no form of training, unless you're like some sort of genetic freak and you're massive and you don't need that. You just got your size. But I think it's more like your mindset towards the situation, as well as being able to physically protect yourself. I think just the way you think of the situation can help, because like I say, you're not if someone shouts at you, you don't necessarily have to like just shout back, do you? You can kind of like calmly be like, oh, hang on, just calm down. And if they come at you, if you can grab hold of them, you could probably take them down. And then if you need to run, you can run. Or, it gives you a head start, basically, I think.
Yeah, I agree. And I really like that, analogy of the if you grab me, because I'm going to run from every altercation. I'm not interested. I've got a wife and kid at home. I've got a nice little life. I don't need to jeopardize that. But I think that staying calm in those situations, as you touched on, if I'm in a situation that it's difficult for me to get away from, and then you grab me, bigger guys than you, stronger guys, I get grabbed 4 times a week on the mats by various levels of killers. So you grab my collar, I won't. It's not going to phase me in the same way where I'm not going to freeze up like some people would.
Exactly.
I'm like, oh, cool. Well, thank you for your arm. I'll take that, please. So yeah, I think that's a really good point. Very, very quickly then, mate, if we can, if we've done enough to pique some interest today, could we perhaps talk about a few maybe misconceptions that people have on jiu-jitsu? So beginners, what are the common misconceptions? What we've talked about what jiu-jitsu is. Can we quickly talk about what jiu-jitsu isn't?
So there's a lot of misconceptions, I guess, with walking into any martial arts gym, isn't there? So like the first one is I've got to be in shape before I come to classes. That's ridiculous. Like, you wouldn't get fit to then go to the gym. You go to the gym to get fit. So like, it doesn't matter. We've got people of all shapes and sizes, from 3 up to however old, like people in their 50s, 60s, but we take even older if they wanted to train. Like, so you don't have to be in shape to come to classes. Coming to classes will get you into shape. I think that's the first one. Do you want me to keep going? The second one I'd say was like, people worried that they won't fit in the gym. And again, like, the amount of different people that we've got here, like different types of people, like different backgrounds, different ethnicities, like different jobs, we have so many different people here that you'll fit in. There'll be that weird little friendship group that you can make from someone. And you look around, and outside of the gym, you can't imagine these two people being mates, but in the gym, they're having the best time together. And there's those little groups of friendships that will be made, and then you'll chat to everyone, but obviously there's always your favorite training partner that you just have a laugh with. Again, too old, I'm too young, I'm too small, I'm too big, like all of that kind of stuff it's kind of like a standard thing to hear. But again, jiu-jitsu is like an equalizer, technique over everything. Strength obviously is a factor, but if your technique is good, then it doesn't matter on everything else.
John, do I have to be a tough guy? Do I have to be a fighter to do jiu-jitsu?
So again, most people here are like nerds, basically. So you walk into the gym and everyone's like, they're friendly, they're just a bunch of weird people talking about weird hobbies. And there's a joke about jiu-jitsu, like, is great if you're autistic and all that kind of stuff, but it's true. We've got lots of neuro spicy people here, all training, and it it's not just a gym full of like muscle bound, like tattooed skinheads, looking at you. But
Thanks.
yeah, it's such a mixture of people that it doesn't matter. You'll fit in.
Love it. And then finally, how do we get started? You've talked me through it. I'm interested. What are perhaps one or two things that you would suggest in order to get started? The best way to do it, and possibly if you can think of any kind of things that maybe you should avoid or just be aware of.
To get started, just turn up. So find a gym that's close to you. Most gyms now offer free trials, so like take advantage of the free trials. If there's a few gyms around you, try each gym, because you've got to find a gym where you feel comfortable, you like the location, the price works for you, the timetable works for you, the people are great. So you've got to find somewhere where you're happy to go and be made uncomfortable for a little bit, So definitely search around, take advantage of the trials, and then just like drop them a message. Most gyms will have a website or social media. Drop them a message, follow their process of signing up. Generally it's sign up, do the trial, see if you like it. That will kind of hopefully point out any red flags in the gym as well. It'll give you a chance to, if you get in there and the gym's like untidy or it's a mess, or that you just don't click with the people or the coaches and stuff like that, it's fine. Like there's other options around generally. So there are things obviously to avoid if the gym you walk into is like gyms they don't have to be like all shiny and modern, but a general level of cleanliness. There's things like I don't know, like some of the coaches, if you get like a weird vibe off of them, then obviously you might always have that vibe, so maybe don't stick with that gym. If your coach isn't willing to like roll with everyone and they kind of stand at the side, then what are they doing? I'd say like if you're, just be wary if they have like a uniform policy in terms of you having to wear their uniform. It's not a bad thing, because it makes everyone look nice in photos and if they're competing, but also it means that you can end up spending a bit more money than you'd need to. So like here, there's no uniform policy. As long as your kit is clean, we're happy. So it's up to you if you join a gym that requires that uniform or not, but just be wary that if they do, you've got to buy it from them, and generally it's a bit more expensive. So there's things like that to watch out for. Does it feel a little bit culty? If it's a little bit culty, just keep on the lookout, a bit wary. There's all those kind of things.
Great. I think that's a really big one. Just to give my 2 cents on that, is a gym I saw recently that in order to grade, you had to be wearing their branded gear, which I thought was like, am I at this level or am I not? That for me is the
from a
am I this or am I that?
From a business standpoint, it makes sense. They're trying to sell their uniform. They might charge you for the seminar to like be graded and all this kind of stuff. But yeah, it's kind of, that works for some people, not for others. So yeah, it's just one to look out for.
Yeah, I think that's fair. This has been really cool, John. I've been looking forward to this one for a while. So thank you for giving up your time. I know how busy you and Joe both are with everything you have going on. But I knew you were the right guy to speak to about this. I knew if anybody could kind of give us an oversight, then it was you. Do you want to plug the socials a little bit before I let you go? Where can people find us?
Yeah, sure,
you, Enyo?
So we're on Instagram, Facebook. I think Joe's done a TikTok now and a YouTube. Parity Martial Arts. If you just search for that, you should hopefully find us. We've got a website, paritymartialarts.co.uk. We do a 7-day free trial. Anyone ever wants to try anything? We've got classes for 3-year-olds and up. We do jiu-jitsu, judo, Muay Thai, boxing, kickboxing, MMA, strength and conditioning, yoga. We've got a sauna, we've got weights area, and a bunch of lovely, lovely people. And then, yeah, all ladies matches. And you've got Enyo grappling. Again, search across the social media and across YouTube for that. Joe's put up a load of the matches from the previous events, so it will give you a good idea of what jiu-jitsu in general is like, and then also how technical and awesome some of the female athletes are nowadays as well. So there's a show. I think she's got a show coming up in June in Southampton. If anyone wants to come and watch it.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
I'll be there. One last question, John. I'm really sorry, but I was looking at our hoodies in the, which I think mine is back to front. I didn't know this was on selfie mode, so I've only just found out today that
No, yours looks okay to me, but
okay.
I'm frozen.
So
I don't know if I'm frozen in yours.
no, you're not frozen in mine. So who knows? This might come out well. Might be the worst YouTube video of all time. If you're close to Southampton and you want to start jiu-jitsu, there is, and I mean, Parity is my 5th martial arts gym and the one I finally managed to feel settled at. But I think there's something in the name for if this is the culture you're looking for, would you just quickly walk us through why we are Parity Martial Arts?
Yeah, so we rebranded from Phoenix MMA in August, I think, and we were obviously, we wanted to find like a name that kind of encompasses our ethos and like what we're about. And parity generally, like, it just means equality. So when you're on the mats, we're all one. We're all the same. Like, everyone's here striving to improve themselves or escaping reality or looking to progress their skills and stuff like that. So no one is more important than anyone else in the gym. No one. Like, we're all on the same level. We're all here doing the same thing. And yeah, it's that kind of like, we're just trying to create like a team and a family and all that kind of stuff. So that's the general idea of the name. And then there's obviously a few more markety bits that I tucked in there for good measure, because I used to be a designer, so you know, that kind of helped. But yeah, like basically is, there's that, is it Yuki Kondo? He was holding up a flag with all the world flags on it, and it just says we're all one. And it's that same idea. It's once you're in here, like, everyone's got the same kind of goals and loves, and yeah,
and that really comes across in the community, which you've done such a great job of building. John, I'll let you go, mate. I've taken up far too much of your time, but thank you for doing this.
You're welcome. Cheers. I'm sorry if I'm a rubbish talker and a waffler and all that kind of stuff. I hope what I said made sense to everyone.
Yeah, it came across really well. So Jon Wellstead, everybody.
Cheers.